For tonight, we'll have two main speakers and then some lightning speakers. Our first talk tonight will be from Will, who's one of our devs here at Assembly Payments.
Okay, as introduced by the rest, I'm Will. My full name is Wilfrido Nuqui Jr. And my handle in GitHub is Nuqui. Yep, that's me. And then I work for Assembly Payments, previously Promise Pay. And I'll be talking about Assembly Payments. Okay, cool. For our outline, the first one, I'll be talking about assembly features. So this is gonna be a quick one. Okay, so for the developers here, who did use Active Merchant in one of your projects in the past? Active Merchants.
Yes.
Jesse. That is. Okay, so yep. So we do a lot of things with Active Merchants, like PCI compliance, handling fraud, risk, and then Assembly Payments is an abstraction on top of that. Actually, Assembly Payments is using Spreadly, and Spreadly is using Active Merchant. So all those headaches, pain points are all handled. So we're just gonna do the basic flow of payments, like creating a user, buyer, seller, creating the items, and then we make payments, create bank accounts. So no interfacing with the gateways. Okay. So Assembly Payments, yep, is a payments engine for marketplaces. And then instead of doing PCI compliance, handling fraud, handling risk, staffing operations, we just need to focus on the business. And then Assembly Payments supports international payments. And then it supports transaction types like escrow, partial release escrow, and express payments. And of course, it accepts a wide range of currencies. Then buyers can make payments via credit and debit cards, wire transfer, ACH, direct debit, and BPay. And then sellers can receive funds via ACH or wire transfer. And then it provides a management platform and SDKs to do payments. Also, the one that's powering this management platform and SDKs is the API that we have. Okay, so now let's try to sign up for an account for Assembly Payments. Okay, cool. So pre-live, this is the account before production. That's why it's pre-live. So you can test your application using your pre-live account. Okay, so just go to the management.prelive.promisepay.com and then click sign up here. And then you need to provide this data: first name, last name, the marketplace name, your email, password, and then country. For now, we support this: Australia, United States, and New Zealand. Then possibly adds on. And then if you agree with our agreements, terms and agreements, you can just click sign up and then have your account confirmed. After that, we will now log in the management platform. To check the management platform. Okay, cool. Once you're logged in the management platform, you can go to account, and then you can see this one, show pre-live API token. We will be needing that to test our APIs. So in testing our APIs, we will follow this flow. Okay. So for this demo, I'm testing the RESTful API. We will do express payment flow. We're gonna need to create a buyer, and then we will create a seller. Then we will create an item, and then we will attach a credit card to the buyer for making payment. Next one, and then we will check the transactions. And then we will create a bank, and that bank we will set that as a disbursement account. So since most of us here are developers, most likely you will do curling on these endpoints. So first, let's check the create buyer endpoints. So you can check our APIs here. Reference.assemblypayments.com. Then you can navigate on the left sidebar. You can click users, and then you can check the create user API. And then at the right side here, you can see these tabs. You can click curl, so we can try the endpoints via curl. Okay. So I have here one prepared. So I just follow this one. Okay, so it's a post call, and then provided the basic auth here, the token, and then the JSON string here. Let's try the create a buyer API. I have this one last call, the piping to PJ, so we can see the predefined output. Okay, so the account is already existing. We can change the values now. So the errors are email for email, mobile, and generally the principal is invalid or the user is invalid. Okay, we can try again for our buyer. Cool. We got this response, JSON response. So the user is successfully created. The buyer is successfully created. Now after that, since we already have a buyer, let's create a seller one. Same endpoint, user's endpoint. Take note that this is pre-live, so our endpoint is test.api.promisepay.com. And then run that. Again, it's an error. Change the email and the number. Cool. So again, the seller is created. Now that we have our seller and buyer, what will the seller sell? We need to create an item. So we will try to create an item for this seller. So the endpoint is items path. And yeah, the details for this, you can check for items here. So we're gonna create an item. So the parameters are ID, name, amount. So the amount, the cost is in cents. So for example, it's a $10 item. So we need to add 2 zeros. So it should be 100. Currency, payment type, where ID. We have this sample call here. I just copy this and then update the values here. Since our example is express, the payment type should be 2. And then we need to supply the ID of the buyer here. We already created our buyer, so gonna check the UUID, the ID of the buyer here. This one. We're gonna use that here. And then the seller one. So this is important. We need to supply the buyer and the seller ID here. Then finally do the API call, the curling of the API. Cool. Seems like we were able to create the item. So now we have a buyer, a seller, and an item. Next one, we need to attach credit card to buyer so the buyer can do payment. Okay. So this is the call. We need to change the user ID here. So this should be the ID of the buyer. Buyer. Cool, so we were able to create this card for the buyer. Now that this card is created for the buyer can now make payment. So we're gonna do make payment. And I'm gonna check the make payment curl for this one. Gonna use this ID of that card account. Make payment. Oh.
The ID and the URL. Items.
Yeah, the item. It's wrong. I need also to update this one. Cool. So we were able to create a payment. Now that we were able to make a payment, let's check the transactions. There. Okay. So That's express payment. So meaning after the buyer made the payment, the funds will move to the account of the seller. Contrast to escrow, the amount will stay to the milestone, to the item. So we need that. We need to do another API to transfer that amount to the seller. Okay. So that's the API, interacting with the API. Of course, this endpoints has their wrappers in different languages. Next one, we will use the Promise Pay Ruby SDK. Okay. So here, as you can see, I'm using this Ruby API wrapper. So we need the username to instantiate the client. The username is actually the email that you use during registration. And then this token is the API key found here when you click this one. There. Okay. So we need to instantiate a Promise Pay client, and then after instantiating a Promise Pay client, we can create buyer, create seller, create an item, make payment. I attach credit card to buyer, make payment. Just what we did with the endpoints, curling with the endpoints. As you can see with the pattern, it's a typical one: client, resources, and then the method. And then like the required parameters in the RESTful API reference, we need to supply those data here. Okay, let's try using this Promise Pay Ruby SDK. I'm using a secure random and faker, so I'll get those free data generated. Then I need to instantiate the client. Now that we have the client instantiated, we can create our buyer. Providing first name, last name, email, address line, state, city, other data. Okay, cool. So it seems like there are no errors. So we can continue on the next one. Again, creating user, but this is the seller. There's no field here use, so we can tag a particular user as buyer or seller. It will be determined when we create an item, because we will be supplying this. We will be supplying values for these fields. Okay, so it's really the same code here. Seller. Cool, there are no errors. Now that we have those two users, the buyer and the seller, we can now create the item. Cool, no errors again. We will now attach credit card to the buyer, so the buyer can make payment. Cool, so there are no errors again. now that we have the card account for the buyer, we can now do make payment here. I notice that all of the calls here are returning objects, but for this one, when this one succeeds, it will return true. Cool. So the make payment is successful. Now we can try again to check the transactions. Yeah, we already have several transactions. Then lastly, if we want to if we want to move our funds or our money from our account to our bank accounts, we need to create bank account. For the seller here, and then set that as the submission. Yep, basically that's all for this. So I demoed creating an account pre-live before going production, because of course you need to test the APIs, the SDKs, and the integrations of your application to our platform, to our payments engine. And then I discuss about the API by curling them, and then of course you will not do that. You need to use an SDK. Since we are all, I think, Ruby developers here, we need to use a Promise Pay Ruby SDK. Yep, that's it. References. On the bottom. Yep. Actually, you can go to assemblypayments.com, and then all related links or needed links can be found in the front page or the home page. Yep, that's all. Thank you.